right, welcome back to New Patients Now. My name is Flint Geyer. As always, I will be your host today for this episode, and excited about our guest coming to us all the way from the other side of the country in California, where it is still the morning time. Live, willing to jump on in the middle of a fire drill, but we've already discovered his advanced noise canceling headset that his team uses on the phones. I can't even hear the drill. So we're going to have a great conversation today. Dr. Mike Jin, thanks so much for joining me today.
Of course, good to be here. I'm always excited to have a conversation about practice and just chat about everything that we've done together.
Yeah, yeah. Love
Yeah,
it. Love it. Well, we'll talk a little bit about the relationship that you've had with us and the work
yeah.
we've done with your team, but that's the last 5 years. But if you were to go back, right, and I want to kind of zoom out probably a little bit more,
hmm
um, what originally got you to want to be a dentist? Like, do you remember, was there like a moment, or
hmm
was it it was always written kind of thing? Like, how did you end up here?
It's actually a fun trajectory because my mom used to be a dentist in China, where I was born. She used to practice when I was a kid, and that actually made me not want to be a dentist because I would
Mm.
play around in her office in China, and I just thought this is not for me. And then fast forward in high school, I actually got a job as a front desk, like a file clerk at a dental office. And after about a week's worth of working there, I hated the job because all I was doing is just filing away paper charts in this dark room and not even see people for like 8 hours a day. And then after the first week, I was like, oh, this is not what I wanted because I wanted to do something a little bit more exciting. So I went up to my boss, told him, this is not for me. Thank you for the opportunity. And then he was like, hey, wait, before you go, maybe be my assistant for like a month. I'll teach you everything you need to know about this profession. Maybe it's a good opportunity. And I was like, okay, fine. I'll give you a little bit more time. So he taught me everything with assisting, like very basic stuff. And one day he was seeing four patients in the office. One patient was in her 90s. Another patient was, I think, in her like 60s. Third patient was in her 30s. And then there was like a toddler or like 7 or 8. And then the lady, like the 90-year-old lady, pulled me aside and she told me, like, hey, this is all four generations of my family that
Wow.
your doctor is seeing. And he's seen us through our entire life, basically. He was there for my daughter's wedding. He was there for my granddaughter's like birthday. And then now she's seeing like my great granddaughter. And that was the eye-opening moment for me because there's very few professions in healthcare that gives you that opportunity to be able to see four generations of a patient's family, to be there for like every moment of their life. And I that to me was amazing. And that's at that moment I was like, okay, this is something that I can potentially do. And also the mixture of artistic skills with clinical. I've always loved art. I wanted to be a painter, an animator before
Hmm.
deciding to be a dentist. This painting behind me is mine.
I was about to ask if that was one of yours. That's
Yeah, so
awesome.
all the art that's in the office are all mine. So I still love painting. I still do it when I have time. When I retire, I'll probably just be in a lake house somewhere, paint.
That works, man.
Yeah. So that just it was a great mix. So I get to do both. So that's kind of like what started.
That's cool. Wow. So
Yeah.
literally, yeah, as you were saying that, I was like, I wonder if any of those people are related. It's like, yeah, they all are. That's so cool. Okay. And now, so okay, so your mom was a dentist in China, and then you worked in this other practice.
Yes.
So when did you move to California?
When I was about 9 years old.
What was that like? I mean, because I imagine, dentist in China, so like you're pretty established, right? What was the impetus for
Right.
the move?
It was to honestly to just have better opportunities here.
Yeah.
Um, my parents basically gave up their entire careers. We left our family to be able to live here, for so that I can have better opportunities and better education. So this was back when we didn't have any internet at all. So it was still phone books.
Yeah.
And to immigrate here, we couldn't leave the country for like almost 10 years. So I didn't get to see my family for almost 10 years.
Dang.
It was a big change. It
Yeah.
was a big change. I think I was still young enough to not really fully understand the entire weight of it all. Um, but it was definitely hard to assimilate and just be a part of like a new world to learn English. I learned English by watching TV most of the time. Like I was watching all these sitcoms. Like one of my favorites is like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. So like I
Okay, I was
watched
gonna
that.
ask, was there one specific, right? So I mean, being in
Yeah.
California, that's perfect, right? Just watching the Fresh Prince. You probably
Yeah.
you probably started using some interesting phrases, and your parents are like, "Where did
A,
you get that?"
a little bit, a little bit. Yeah, so I think it was that. It was like one summer I was watching like a bunch of wrestling and sitcoms, and then showed up to school in the fall, like just knowing how to speak English all of a sudden.
Just cutting good wrestling promos, and yeah, just showing up is like
There was
not
definitely a few.
only.
There's definitely a few of that.
That's great. Okay, I
Yeah.
like me and my brother watched wrestling all the time when we were growing up. So who was your favorite
Mhm.
WWE WWF guy?
Oh man, it was I think Kane and Undertaker. Those were my
Ah,
favorites.
nice. I like it. Solid. All right.
Yeah,
I don't know
yeah,
what I was expecting, but for some reason it wasn't them. Okay.
yeah.
Anyways, back to the regularly scheduling programming outside. We could just only talk about pro wrestling, I guess, if you really wanted to, but I don't think anybody
Right.
would appreciate that too much. Um,
Separate
so
podcast.
yeah, that's a different show you can tune into. Um, Man, that's cool. Okay, so came over, you're 9 years old, and you saw that first job in the office. You're like, man, the administrative part of the
Mhm.
practice, not interested in that specifically. Some nice paper charts in the dark room, and then got to see that human connection, uh,
Mhm.
the opportunity to ultimately like serve multiple generations, right? And
Yes.
so, what about that drew you to, like, was that immediate? Like, you saw that, you had that experience assisting for the month, and you're like, there might be something to this. And
Yeah.
then that was kind of, you knew?
Pretty much. I mean, it was a great work-life balance as
Yeah.
far as healthcare goes too. Like you get to pick your own hours, you go home, you're not really on call, and you get to influence people's lives before it became like reactive medicine. And I thought
Yeah.
that was the best part because so many roles in healthcare is reactive, right? Like when something really bad happens, then everybody jumps in. And I think at that moment, it was just like, hey, you can just make these little changes here and there and really affect so many people's lives.
Yeah.
And also, you just get to meet so many different people on like on a daily basis.
Yeah.
So I thought that was super cool. It was never boring because you get to just everybody's equal. Everybody walks into the door. Everybody needs care. And even till this day, like what the coolest thing about my job is that I get to meet so many different people from everywhere, all over the world, and you just have fun and connect with people.
Yeah.
And
Love that.
I still love that every day.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So from that time, right? So I think you went to UCLA for dental school. Did you do undergrad
Hmm.
there as well?
I went to Irvine, UC
Okay.
Irvine.
So UC Irvine,
Hmm.
go to UCLA, graduate dental school. So when did you graduate dental school?
2015.
15. All right.
Yes.
So you get out, right? It's like, all right, we're gonna go do this thing. Right?
Hmm.
Did you go right into owning a practice? Were we an associate somewhere? Was that a private office, a corporate office? What was that first job out?
So I went straight into private practice. I knew I was always going to go straight into private practice. I was in training for oral surgery when I was in dental school, and then decided not to move forward with it because 6 more years of school was a little too much, I thought. And also during school, I really wanted to learn how to own and run a practice
Hmm.
just because I love the business aspect of it. I
Yeah.
was a management major in Irvine as a second major. So like managing people, how to lead, how to just the intricacies of running a business always interested me. So I always thought I wanted to own my own clinic, run my own business one day. And I just didn't want to waste any more time. So I just really wanted to dive into that fully. Um, I tell everybody this all the time. Like I've worked in almost 16 different offices in the 3 years that I was an associate after
Wow.
school. Because I knew I didn't have enough exposure to business or how to run a practice. So I just wanted to just dive in, learn everything I possibly can about that aspect of our job. I worked in offices in like Beverly Hills. I worked in offices that are like really highly cosmetically focused. And I also worked in community clinics. And I also worked in corporate because I wanted to see how everybody ran their business.
Hmm.
And I would literally drive almost over 100 miles a day just getting into the offices. Um, every other day, I was in a different place. And that was honestly the best education I've ever gotten.
That's fascinating. So, like, were your classmates when you got out of school, like, and you guys would, be like, hey, how's it going? Now that you're out,
Yeah.
you're doing it, and somebody's like, yeah, I'm just chugging away here at this in this office, and then you come along and be like, well, I've worked in 5 different places this week, and it's awesome. Like, did they just look at you like you were a crazy person? What was the like? What was that like?
A little bit, but the culture, the associate culture in LA is kind of like that. Just because there's
Okay.
so many different offices, so it's not uncommon for associates to work in different places when they graduate.
Hmm.
I kind of took it to the extreme where I wasn't saying no to anything. Like sometimes doctors would need me to cover for like 2 weeks. And if my schedule permitted, I would say yes. And then that would give me an opportunity to see how the other practice was run. Like I've literally been in practices where they had paper schedules, like
That's great.
just those notebooks that you get from Office Depot. That's a calendar.
Yeah, yeah.
And all they would have is just the patient's name and the time they were coming in and nothing else. There's nothing that told me what they were doing. And then we just had to figure it out.
Yeah. And one person who owns that notebook and you don't mess with her notebook, right? I mean, just love that.
Nobody owned it. They was just on the table.
Oh, never
I
mind.
walked
It's
in
just
and I was like, hey,
whoever
what's
happened
my
to answer the
schedule?
phone and they're like, oh, sure, sounds good. Oh, that's great.
Yeah. I walked in. I was like, oh, where's the computer? Where's the program? Where's the calendar? And they're like, it's on the table. I was like, there's no computer there. And they're like, the schedule is on the table.
Well, damn. Okay. And that would have been like 2016, 2017 too. Okay. Yeah. I'm having to like recalibrate in my mind,
Yeah.
like what year this was. That's
Oh
awesome.
no. We had computers.
Yeah.
Everybody had
Computers were
computers.
there. Yeah.
They were
Yeah.
there.
I love that. Okay. So you do that for the first 3 years. So that
Yeah.
gets you, and so I'm assuming when you say first 3 years out, that after that is when you went off on your own.
Yes. So I still worked in as an associate while I was building my practice. So I
Okay.
started planning and building my practice in 2018,
All right.
kind of end of 2018. And construction went from like June, August of 2018. We finished construction permits, everything by like August of 2019.
Gotcha. And so
And
saw
then
first patients at the end of 2019.
yeah, and then all of 2018 was just planning, like
Yeah.
finding real estate, writing systems. Which like the benefit of me going to different offices was that I got to work on my systems when I had downtime.
Yeah. The observation I'm sure had to be
Mhm.
really impactful. Now,
Right.
what did you learn? So, I mean, being in 16 different places,
Yeah.
thinking like eyes towards, I know I want to do this on my own someday. I don't want to have my own practice. Like, what were some of the common themes that you saw that number one, I think you liked and you wanted to bring forward? And then what were some of the things
Hmm.
that, because to be honest, 16 practices is probably more offices than most dentists ever spend time in, which is crazy to say, but I think it's probably true. Like maybe in the LA
Yeah.
associate community, right? You guys are bouncing around, but I
Yeah.
talk to rooms of people and I'm like, how many offices have you been to? Like four,
Hmm.
six, two,
Hmm.
one, right? And they've been in it for
Hmm.
50 years.
Right.
So, and then we have trainers who go into 600, but
Yeah.
16 is even a way better sample size than three. So, what did you
Yeah.
see consistently that you kind of said to yourself, man, that that's not it. I'm not going to
Hmm.
do that.
I think honestly, I think this was the one of the great reasons why we worked so well together when I found you guys too, which is that was the question that always bugged me, which is there's so many dental offices, especially in LA. Why what made the one in Beverly Hills so much different from this other office that had paper calendars? Because they're
Mhm.
both doctors, they were both trained the same way. So where did that separation happen? And like why are these two businesses run so differently? And I think the commonality was customer service. The one thing that separated everything was customer service, how the people were treated when they walked into the door, and how much time and attention the team spent with the patient when they walked into the door. And like, and this is an exercise that we always do in my office that I've kind of carried over was we would read negative reviews from other offices, not to like judge or make fun of or whatever, but we learn from other people's mistakes. And
Yeah.
most of the negative experiences that patients have is not with the doctor, it's with the rest of the team. It's the financials. It's how they were treated, how they were talked to, how they were like greeted when they come into the door. And then one of the biggest differences with like a Medi-Cal, Denti-Cal office versus like a high-end like Beverly Hills office was that when I went to the Denti-Cal office, there would be like 30 people waiting in the waiting room. They would be waiting for hours.
Mm.
And we're just trying to do this volume game that was not good for anybody. The doctors are stressed, the team was stressed, the patients are stressed, and we had like the craziest thing I've ever done was like the office gave me 40 minutes to do two root canals and like 10, 20 fillings. I don't remember, but it was some ridiculous expectation.
Jeez.
And I had to say no. I'm like, this is not good for anybody. Like, it can't, it's going to compromise quality of care. We're going to harm the patient by doing this all the time. And this was running like all day for years. And so my commonality was just like, how are people being treated when they walk into the door? And my main focus when I designed my office was I wanted to bring in a high level of customer service that nobody else was doing. And I actually learned a lot of my most knowledgeable like information from hospitality,
Mm.
like from
Yeah.
hotels and restaurants.
How, and I think that's such an important, what can seem like a small point you're making, but
Hmm.
I think it is one of the most interesting things that people like to miss. It is this
Hmm.
idea that every good idea about your practice has to come from a dental
Hmm.
office.
Hmm.
Like,
Right.
well, should it like to your point, if you want to have a place that when people walk in they feel different, right? Maybe
Right.
pick a different place besides that, right? Because I think there's this echo chamber, and you correct me if I'm wrong, of, I mean, there's the clinical, like, there's clinical excellence, right? Which you have done a lot to
Yeah.
be clinically very good. But
Right.
in those other practices, it sounds like you saw pretty early on you can have the same clinical ability in dramatically different outcomes, feelings,
Right.
environments
Right.
in those practices, right? So, I mean, I think it's
Right.
great that you saw that early because a lot of times I think we
Right.
miss that. Why do you think so many doctors almost, because it's not on purpose. None of
Right.
them are doing it on purpose and saying, I don't want to have that or I don't want to do that for my patient. It's
Right.
it feels to me like it's always this, well, the clinical has to come first, and for some reason that has to be like a competition with what we're doing for
Right.
the patient, the customer, right? So like why do you think that is in your
Ooh,
observation?
that's a loaded question, I think, because there's so many aspects, right? Like there is, I mean, the first and foremost, ego, like the fact that we're doctors, and some people feel like I am the doctor, I am highly trained, therefore all of the the reputation should come from the clinical provider, right? Like I am the best at what I do, therefore that should be enough. Um, and then the other part is it's really hard training people. It is the hardest thing about running a practice, in my opinion, for at least my practice, which is training five, six, 10 different people to be able to speak the same language, to be able to present themselves the way that you want them to with very little training. Because front like dental office jobs are not known to be like there's not a lot of training that comes like behind it. Like to be a dental assistant, it's like 3 months, 6 months, $8,000. Then they barely train you on the things that are actually happening in the practice. Like a lot of us assistants who are newly grads, they're still getting trained in how to develop like film X-rays, which is insane.
Wow.
And this education part is just very like lacking in like the modern day of practice. And then when they come in, not only do you have to teach them how a modern office runs, but also have to teach them how customer service the requirements are. And a lot of people don't really have a lot of exposure. And like just to put things into perspective, like Starbucks has like a 3 week training program for their baristas. Like, or it
Yeah.
takes 3 weeks of intensive training for them to just make a cup of coffee. And yet
Right.
we have an interview for a dental assistant and then throw them into surgery on like the next day
On Tuesday,
and
right?
then expect them to be yeah, on Tuesday, like sometimes the day of, right? Like,
Yeah.
oh, you have a pulse, you can hand me stuff, let's go. And that's the disconnect where we don't have enough time to train properly. There's a lot of knowledge to be had to begin with from the leadership. Like I was listening to so many podcasts on restaurants and hotel design. One of my favorite books of all time is this book called Unreasonable Hospitality.
So good.
Um, I got my entire team. It's one of the best books I've ever read. And just so many of those little things that you learn and pick up, and you just realize how important it is. And also in my life, in my experience, where some of the hotels that you go to, restaurants that you go to, I pick up little things of like, how do they do this? How do they do that? Why did they make me feel this way when it's the same thing? It's the same food. When
Mm,
you go to a hotel, it's the bed in the room, right? But why do we pay $10,000 for our stay sometimes versus like the
right.
Motel 6? You know what I mean? Like, so I love thinking about that, and this is fun.
Yeah. And it's really hard for someone to even think about that, right? Like someone's going to listen and
Right,
say, $10,000 to stay at the hotel. Like, is this person some kind of insane billionaire? Like,
right,
until you actually experience it, you're almost always going to judge it.
yes,
Are you not? Like in some capacity,
right,
right? Which I
right,
think is another challenge to it,
right,
right? So, we haven't
yeah,
talked anything about like what you've done over the last 5 years, but I mean, essentially in less than 10 years, you've gone from not having a practice to what many would consider, well, actually, what is like a top 3 times as productive as the average dental office in America. So, like,
right,
if you think about that, right? Okay, so no practice at the end of 2018.
hmm
So 2020, first year, COVID. And it was
COVID.
COVID in LA, which I have to imagine was just extra horrible, right?
Yeah.
And so your first 3 years, you got to deal with that. And then all the
Mhm.
while, I mean, I don't know where I put it, but yeah. So let's see. COVID year, practice grew, still under $1 million. 2021 to 22, you almost double the practice, and then have doubled it again since 2022. So, like, to listen to some of this, be like, oh, hotels and restaurants, and what does that really have to do anything with the practice? Meanwhile, right, you're getting like COIS center
Right.
trained, and right, you're doing the clinical work too, right? So it's not like we're sitting here
Yes.
just for the person listening who is getting potentially judgmental on like, oh, talking about business and hospitality and all this stuff. Like, you're also a pretty
Right.
damn good dentist from what I can read. Um,
Right.
and it is possible to do both. So
It is.
you mentioned a lot about the team, right? And so you opened the practice in 2019. So 2020, 2021, I think you started with us in like December of 2021. So those
Mhm.
first 2 full years in private practice, right? Other than the fact that it was like the COVID pandemic, right? How did that match up to your expectations?
To be honest with you, like I see it as a blessing in disguise, as far as like running a practice, just because yes, it sounds horrible. Like when we just opened for 6 months, when we just started having like normal patient flow, we had to shut down for about 2 months or so. A lot of things kind of fell into place. Like the reason why I chose the space that I chose was because not only the location, but also the owner was the development company. And I like that idea just because they didn't care about me not paying the rent on time. All I
Hmm,
had to do was tell them like I was going to close for 2 months, and they were like, "Oh yeah, it's fine. Let's just pay us back the next year," because they're not hurting. They're not dependent on my rent.
right.
The downside with that is that things move very slowly because I can't really reach leadership if I needed to get anything done.
Yeah.
But at the same time,
Always
I
a
didn't have to
trade.
worry about finances. That was always a trade. Meanwhile, I had friends who had their own practices that was owned by private ownership, and they demanded rent throughout the entirety of COVID because they also had to pay their bills.
Yeah.
Um, and then because I had my new practice was a startup, when we first opened back up again, cleanliness and having a individualized treatment room was huge. So a lot of patients were looking for newer offices because all of those things became the forefront. A lot of the patients who were in like older offices started to like wanted to change, and a lot of our dentists retired because of it. So
Right.
we actually caught the entire wave of this transitional period, and we started just growing month after month. And then it just became, how do I manage the team? How do I control growth and still be able to focus on having like a safer environment for everyone? And we got to do that in very early stages of the practice. So I think it was a hard and difficult time, but it became like we solidified systems really fast.
Hmm.
And when the chaos kind of slowed down and people were able to breathe again, that was much easier flow. And we were
Yeah. It's
ready
almost like
for like
a
expansion, basically.
right. You got a little test of some fire, and
Yeah.
then it's like,
Yeah.
okay, well, now when the growing pains happen, we know how to deal with pain. Uh, so
Right.
okay, and I think you hinted at this before we started, but those first couple of years, some things sounds like fell into place, believe it or not. Um,
Hmm.
And then at the end of really that second year, right, is when we started to work together. So what about those first 2 years made you think like, hey, I want to look into training for my team or coaching for myself as the business owner? Was that a was there a moment that you said, hey, I need to figure this out, or was that something that you always somewhat envisioned for yourself and your practice?
That's a great question. I always knew I needed help because all the training and the self learning that I had was to build and to be able to run the first couple years because it
Mm,
was just me. I never had any training, real training with running a team and how to just systematically have this structure. And I went to a few training events with different consulting companies and different organizations, and it never really clicked because it was just like, listen to us, don't question us. Oh wait, but LA is a different story, so we can't really apply our
mm.
results to LA because that's a different beast. So it was
Except
always
for
that,
you.
and then like exactly. So it was like, oh, like I love what you guys are doing here. Like I would love to implement that in my office. And then they'll ask me where I'm from, and then when I tell them I'm from LA, they're like, oh no, but like don't, like our results are not because of LA. I was like, okay, well, that kind of
Interesting.
sucks. That just,
Why was that?
yeah, it was weird. I think it's just because of like the environment
Hmm.
of like, and I don't think anybody wants to touch LA because they think it's such a saturated place and there's too much competition.
Mm.
And but then again, that kind of shows like, well, your system doesn't really quite work when it's stress tested then, right?
Yeah, that's interesting.
But I remember I was referred to you guys by a friend. And then we had a phone call, and I just liked everything that I was hearing from the phone call. And then the meeting, the planning session was what really drove the idea home because our ideals were aligned. I love what you guys are doing. I love honestly, I love the values and the
Mm.
focus that you guys had, which is to have a full life, to
Mm.
to give, to be generous, to build, and then to be able to share that with everyone that's around you. And I think that's what honestly really like made me want to be a part of it and see this as like a really mutually beneficial relationship, because at the end of the day, like the material is the same, right? Like we should all know that we should be financially responsible. We need to be training our team. Like the the writing on the pages are not something that's like a secretive proprietary thing. But what keeps me motivated and excited about working with you guys is that you guys are like family. You guys are always coming in to train. Like all the trainers that come into our office, like my team knows them and they're so excited to see them, and we update each other on life. And the goal is always to just help each other,
Yeah.
and so then we can help others. Um, the example that I like to give to everyone was when I first went into like a new client event. I was already signed up by that time. I just went anyway
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I've never heard Jay speak in person. And then so I went to Phoenix for a day, and then all these doctors were in the room. I think what drove that idea home, and I knew I was in the right place, was when Jay handed everybody $100.
Mm.
He just brought out this stack of cash and he just gave everyone $100, and everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, what's happening?" And then he told us like, "Hey, just give this to somebody who you think is going to make the biggest difference. And I know you're not used to giving your own money, so I'm going to give you mine to
Yeah.
give. And then you have no excuse." And then he said, because he's like, "I want you guys to practice this muscle, right?" And then he told everyone like, "If you wanted to keep this $100, don't ever come back in this room again." And to me,
And also,
that yeah, and to me that was like, that's where it really made me super excited, because you mean what you preach. You walk the walk, and this is the goal. It's to let us be in a place where we get to help others in the best way possible.
yeah,
um
awesome.
and what really kind of made me like figure out my why was to invest more in my team, to be able to train them and give them a career and a future versus just a job, because that's how it's always been treated, which is just a job. And then the next highest bidder will get them over like $1 promotion. How
Yeah.
many people have we lost were really good over $1 or $2 an hour, right? So
Yeah.
to me, that was just such a fresh idea, and it aligned with my like focus of providing like, hospitality and just treat people well all around. So that's been the driving force between like why I'm like fully committed to working with you guys, because it's just I love everything that we do together. And it's
That's
always
all.
because that is the motivation behind it.
Yeah. Put the patient first and they will return the favor,
Right.
right? Like,
Right.
and to do that, you have to your point, invest in your people, right?
Yes.
So it's funny. I on the note of your team, right? And I
Hmm.
think it's always interesting to go back and look how many times a trainer has physically spent at least a full day with you and your team, right? So, because I think
Hmm.
until someone does that, you really just, I don't think understand it, because there's so many
Yeah.
people who like, yeah, I train my team or whatever, but it's some, online course or they're sending them to some place and it's
Yeah.
mostly clinical and there's a difference when you're in your space, you're in your office, you're dealing with your people in their comfort zone, not yours.
Yeah.
Um, and so, like, do you know how many trainings you guys have done in the last, I guess, 5 years?
I can find out. I mean, we regularly have like 4 trainings every year, and it's been like 4 years, right? So,
Yeah, I don't know how the math works, but I did look it up, and 30 times. So
yeah.
between December of 2021 and
Hmm.
today, right?
Hmm.
30 times someone that you have been willing to, number one, close the office for a day
Right.
and through us pour into your people to develop them. Now, I saw something that you had posted the other day, and I think it's the number one question that people ask around training, right? Because obviously you are a serial people developer trainer, right? And are happy to
Hmm.
do that. But that's in the eyes of some easy to say now, right? But the
Hmm.
first year when we probably said, hey, for this thing to really work, you probably should do a
Hmm.
training at least every quarter, right? Did you have
Right.
like, were you immediately like, oh yeah, that sounds great. I'd be more than happy to close down the office and not produce for 4 days this year and actually pay to train my people during that time? Or did you have a little bit of that hesitancy of like, well, what if they leave? Or what if, we're gonna lose production that day? Like,
Hmm.
what was your process there?
I mean, I was definitely hesitant. Like the first day with the commitments is always going to be hesitant. Like, and I fully understand the hesitancy the hesitancy for everybody, because I every
Totally.
time I post something, I always get messages and phone calls and texts. I'm like, oh, how is this program? How is this? What do you think? Is it worth it? Is it worth the price tag? That's the
Yeah.
most pressing question always, right?
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, like I worked with you guys for how many years? And like literally it took 2 years for me to just do one thing that you guys recommend. It's not because I've tried different ways, and like, the first time maybe we wanted to schedule some more patients after training, like I don't want to close for a full day. Let's see a few
Yeah.
more patients like afterwards. And it was like too much. And then people were stressed. So then the next time we switched it over a little bit, like, oh, let's not do everything they tell us to do. Let's just maybe do 2 things. And then, it's a process.
Totally.
And I think honestly, the best way to describe any of this is like having a physical trainer. I tell everybody this, like it's the same as having a therapist or physical trainer. Anybody who's a healthy professional, like working with you, like your first visit, you're not going to have a six pack. You're gonna go through pain. You're gonna go through resistance. You're gonna go through like, I don't want to do this today. I'll have years and quarters where like, I don't want to do any of the things that we just talked about.
Hmm.
But then over time, you see the value in it. And then you see that other people find value in this. And then I adopt things one after another. And I have this running joke with my advisor, Melissa, is that like, I text her sometimes or I meet with her and I tell her, like, I hate it when you guys are right. But you guys are always right.
Which I'm sure she appreciates very much. That's great.
Yeah, remember that thing we talked about like a year ago? I'm finally doing it.
Yeah.
And I think it's great.
And I'll be damned. It's working again.
I'll be down.
Um, that's great. But it's funny, right? I think that's just a part of the process. I think every single
Yeah.
person that I've ever talked to, and anybody who I think has really done much of anything, like no one just immediately is the perfect
Right.
implementer, student. Like it's almost unnatural, you know?
Right.
But the willingness to do that, I think, repeatedly over time is what allows it to build. And that's why I think some of the repetition is so important, even
Right.
though sometimes, 'cause I know it happens to me. I'll be in a room, I'll hear the same thing for the 10th time, and all of a sudden, oh,
Yeah.
now I get it, right?
Right.
Which is just such a shame when, you know, someone isn't in the room for the fourth time to hear the thing they needed to hear, right? Which is just, it's always a bummer
Mm-hmm.
on the other end of it. But
Mm-hmm.
no, that's awesome. Well, to wrap up, because time is flying, um,
I know.
talk to me about your team. So you
Yeah.
guys, you guys have great online ratings. You obviously have a focus and intentionality around the hospitality and the experience that the patient gets, right? So, um,
Yeah.
in dealing with enough doctors and practices, like I know if that exists, it's going to make its way to the patient most of the time. But when it doesn't, to your point, it's because of something they don't know is happening, right? And that almost always has to do with the team
Mm-hmm.
because 90
Yeah.
whatever percent of their time in your office, unless they're getting serious work done, they're spending with the
Right.
team and they're not spending it with you. Like all
Mm-hmm.
the
Exactly.
all your just recurring proactive patients, it's
Mm-hmm.
like what, 4 minutes with the doctor? It's like, yeah, it looks good again. See you next time, right? But those are the ones
Yeah.
that you need to have coming back over and over and over and over again and telling their friends and family about why your
Yes.
office is so different, right? Like, knock on wood,
Right.
so far that has been me. And people leave because of
Mm-hmm.
indifference, right? And I've done that plenty of times. I have a more
Yes.
skeptical lens, I'm sure, but that's not the point. Uh, so, how has your team, number one, how have they responded to the work that you've done, right? So obviously a lot of
Mhm.
training, right? Were there
Yeah.
any hiccups with that? Did you like was everybody pretty much like they rode as you rode, and if you were on board, they were, or did you ever have any moments of pushback where you kind of had to hold the line and be like, no, we're going to do it this way and see how it goes?
Um, yes and no. Like surprisingly, fortunately, almost everybody in my team has been very receptive to training.
It's great.
I think because that was the mindset from day one.
Mm,
Because we started getting training so early, and I constantly tweak and work on protocols myself that they're always ready to change. And also, I think me getting so much clinical training on the other side of this shows them that I'm constantly tweaking. Like I would
right.
literally come back from a training and then like change everything. And they're used to the craziness.
Yeah.
Um so it kind of self filters too, because now when I hire, I tell them all the things we're supposed to do and all the training that we're supposed to have, and they're supposed to come in ready to go. It kind of filters out people who don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Because in like
Oh,
all the things that we tell them from the first initial visit and interview, and you can tell that people are like, ah, that's not for me. Because I'm just kind of like, I like to
right.
just go into an office and work and just do one thing at a time.
Yeah. And
And the
do you
people
think it's just as
who
important, or sorry, do you think it's just as important that
Mhm.
that attracts that type of person as it is that it repels the one who is going to be the issue?
Absolutely. So I think when I tell them everything that's required for them to have a job here, I try to pay attention to if they're like hesitating or they're like having a spark in their eye of like, I'm ready to go because I haven't had this opportunity.
Yeah.
Right. So it's different pieces of the puzzle fitting together, which is, we always want to hire the most growth minded people, but not everybody who says that are actually willing to do the work. And they'll see me getting training all the time. The team has their protocols and their systems and their calendar figured out beginning of the year. And then the third part of it is, and this is something that I've learned from you guys over the years, is that we provide super competitive pay more than others. We have benefits like health benefits, vision, dental. So basically, we're checking off all the marks of things that people worry about
Mm-hmm.
for survival.
Right.
So that when you're in the office, you don't have to worry about paying your bills. You don't have to worry about not having benefits. You don't have to worry about all those things that you typically would worry about. So now when you hear, the only thing that's left is your performance, how you treat people, and how we learn together. And that's all of those things together really helps the environment and having everybody grow comfortably. Um, but it takes time, right? Like it really takes time. It
Yeah.
takes a lot of investments from the doctor side. It takes a lot of like, yes, you're not getting the feedback, and yes, your people might leave after you spent a huge amount of money, but that's the cost of business, right? Like this is what it takes to run a full team that everybody faces, like not just us. Any company, any business will have people come and leave, right? And
They
those
actually
who
all will.
thrive,
That's yeah, right. They will all leave
yeah, they will
statistically.
all leave.
The only
Exactly.
person who's stuck there is you. Like the only person who
Yes.
is legally tied to the like is you, which I think is, it's a good
Right.
reminder for people, right? Um, no, I love that. Well, hey, this was great. I really appreciate you spending the time and telling the
Hmm.
story of it, and I think it'll be helpful for people who are just number one, like curious about what it takes, right?
Right.
Because I think a lot of what we've talked about is just simply what it takes. Because it takes what it
Yeah.
takes, and it's really the good news is it's not super complicated, right? Like if you were to
Right.
listen to this, there's like 5 things. If you just did those consistently, you're probably going to be in a better spot. But if there's one thing that you would say to um, practice owning doctor, let's say they're still in their first 10-year run, right?
Hmm.
What would be like your go-to piece of advice for that person?
I think the advice that I tell myself all the time too is ask for help.
Hmm.
I think that would be honestly the easiest, the most like distilled version of all of this, which is just know when to ask for help. Everybody needs help. Ask for it and just be around growth-minded people. Be around the community that help build each other versus tear each other down. That's something that we didn't get to talk about today, which is like that's another positive, so that you get to hang out with all these doctors who are willing to build their practice and be better like all the
Hmm.
time, and
Yeah.
and they're optimistic and they're not just like skeptical and they're not like pessimistic about the world. And it's a great place to just even have a group of people that will uplift and support each other, and be able to do that with doctors from all over the world like twice a year or 3 times a year and become friends. I think that's like huge because this job is so isolating. And I think
Right.
that's also another thing that nobody addresses, is that it's lonely as hell owning a practice when you're the only person who's calling all the shots. And I think that's something that's really helped me, which is I can ask for help when I need to. I have a great group of friends and peers that will help me when I need them, you guys included, right? So I can't tell you how many times I've gone to workshops and meetings defeated, like burnt out, defeated. And then just having those days where we talk about different things and talking about how to have a balanced life, taking a break, right? And then like being around other doctors who are facing the same problem is like medicinal. It helps so much. Like I leave those workshops like energized.
Yeah.
And that's
That's,
huge.
that's awesome. There is
Yeah.
something to just getting out of the
Hmm.
office, right?
Right.
And being around people who are trying to do the same thing, right?
Yes.
Who are past your level, at your level, whatever, right? I just think,
Mhm.
regardless, right, seeking that out is Man, I did something about a month ago, and it just reminded me. I was like, ooh, yeah, we're underplaying how important just that piece of it is, you know?
Right.
So I
Right.
appreciate you saying that. Well, no, I think that's a great piece of advice for anybody doing anything, right?
Right.
It is so hard in a world where we all judge each other and judge
Mhm.
ourselves to say, hey, maybe I don't have all the answers. Maybe I do need some help. So
Right.
I think that's fantastic. Well, hey, Dr. Jen, thank you so much for joining me today. Nice extended episode, but a lot of great stuff. Could
Yeah,
have kept going for a long time. I know when you said
I'm
we're gonna be
sure.
out here at 11, I was like, oh, we're not even going to get close to that. I was like, I was wrong. But no, seriously, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Of
We'll see
course.
you next
Thank you
time.
so much. Take care.